Hello friends, welcome to another very simple tutorial. This day we will make a minimap for our game. Let's select our player. It is for us here under Assets, Adventure Creator, Downloads and First Person Player, because we are using this. Okay, so we want a minimap. So that means we want to have additional camera attached to the player. We don't want to have another audio listener in the scene, so remove that. And we are adding this kind of camera instead of the AC camera because by default AC disables any camera that is not like being used, so it would not work at that point. So let's zero out the position for our new camera. Rotate it by 90 degrees on the x-axis and bring it higher to like maybe 25. And then change the projection to be orthographic. And change the size to be like 15 or something like that. So that would be our minimap camera. And then we need a render texture. Right click on your project folder and find the render texture right here. You can pretty much leave all of these as default. You can change the size here if you need to. Go to your camera and under output, it's at the very bottom, drag the render texture there. It will automatically make it this square shape that we want. And then depending on which you want, you can have it as an UI, like we have a menu made here. Let's just delete that and create a new one. We have a minimap menu. We want it to appear during gameplay. And then just add an element of the type graphic and just grab the same new render texture as the texture here. Then we want to size it a little bit. So let's make it manual size, lock the size, and maybe 15 would be enough. And then the size here to make it the same size. There we go. Element spacing, bring that down to 0 because we don't like that. And then we want to change the position to be aligned at the, let's say, upper right for now. And that already shows us a minimap of this style in the upper corner. It is very simple, but we don't currently see anything of our player there. So, how to fix this? What I did in my testing, I created an icon for the player, basically. So let's just, if you don't have the 2D sprite package installed, you want to go to Unity registry and choose the 2D sprite and install it. But we add a 2D object, a sprite, a circle. Let's rotate that on the x-axis by 90, bring it to position 0, and then let's change the color to be like maybe blue or green or whatever you decide for your player's icon. You could have this as an like maybe the head of the player, like a sprite of just the player's head or something like that. Something that signifies it's your character. Then we have also created a new layer. You need to add a layer if you don't have any, but we have a minimap icons layer here. So this should make sure that we don't have the minimap icons in any of our other cameras. Only, let's name this minimap camera. And this should not show the weapon of the player and show the minimap icons. So this camera will then show only the minimap icons. Nothing else will show that. Let's copy that while we're here and go ahead and bring it to our enemies also. Paste as a child. No, as a child, please. And paste as a child. Make sure they're correct and change the color to be red. That signifies an enemy. And in order for it to not clip with anything, we have to bring up the ordering layer. I think that should do it. They still show it here, but during gameplay it shouldn't show like that. And also make sure to also do it for the player. Let's make our ordering layer to be 2, so our player's icon shows on top of the enemies, so we can clearly see where our player is going. Let's see if that works already. And we have a blue little dot and red dots as the enemies. The enemy sprites or the models also are shown. We could make sure that the enemy mesh isn't shown, like choose a layer for it. It could be on another layer that the minimap camera doesn't show. But that's fine for us for now. Needs a little tweaking, but it's fine. It works. So we have a minimap in the corner. But what if we want to have an actual game object that the player carries with them that shows the camera? Let's create a 3D object of the type quad. This is just a basic plane, basically. Let's move it on front of the player somewhat. I could probably put it under the same weapon holder or create a new like map holder if you don't want it to show at the same time as the weapon you have or whatever you have. But I think this should work. We might want to rotate it a bit, like to make sure it's kinda facing the camera, like this. You might want to make like some sort of object around this, like for example a map or some sort of device that like holds the minimap. And then just drag the new render texture onto the object. That will make sure that this will also project the same image that is projected into the minimap menu here. It will automatically create a new material which has the render texture as its base map. And it goes into your materials folder. It is here, new render texture.mat. We can drag it back to our assets folder so we can find it easily if we need to tweak it in any way. So now when we play, we can also see the minimap in our player, but it looks a bit weird. So that means we want to go and universal render pipeline and make it onlit. I think that should work. Also, I forgot the quad. We want it to be in a layer in the weapon layer. So it means the camera itself won't show it, but it will be shown as the weapon camera that we have in the scene. So only this will show it, so it doesn't clip with objects. And there we go. If we want to position it better, if we want it to have some sort of animation when we're moving, then we should just animate the object that is holding the map itself. But now we have an actual game object instead of an UI object that shows the minimap. We could also try for the enemy circles to just basically just move them up top of their heads, so that should fix the issue of the models showing on top of the sprites like that. We can still see the meshes moving around there in the minimap, but it's fine. That's another problem. So we want to create some sort of effect for the minimap. So let's go back to our player which holds the camera, the minimap camera. And what we can do, make sure all of your cameras have the post-processing tapped on. You usually want that, but for this it's important for the minimap camera to have the post-processing on, so the next step works. Let's create a new volume, a box volume around the camera. It is right there, it needs to be in the 0 position, so it affects only this camera. We want to create a new profile, and we can just add overrides here or find this in where it is and add the overrides here. Post-processing, let's add some effects. whatever you want to have for your camera. Color adjustments, lens distortion, film grain. Let's turn all of those on. Like so, maybe. I don't know what's gonna happen now when we do this. Let's change up the values a little bit so we can affect how the minimap shows. If you want to have kinds of different kinds of effects on your minimap, you can do that. So we can go here on there, the don't destroy and load. If you want to modify those while you can see the effects, you can go here and just start modifying. Let's see if we want to go back and don't do the hue shifts, for example, so the colors basically stays the same. And there's the film grain if you want that or something. It doesn't really work for this fantasy thing, but for something like if you want to have some sort of device for your futuristic game, it could have some of these effects. A film grain and a vignette or something like that. It affects both of our UI and everything that shows this overlay camera it's only that is affected and not our main game view. And we can also have a global volume that only affects the entire scene, and usually just have some bloom or something. I think this will also affect the overlay camera or the minimap camera, but that's fine. We now also have some bloom for our like bright objects in the scene, like for example the torches and the skies a little bit. If we move this, not the threshold, but the intensity, you can see it affects everything. But we don't want that much. Yeah, that's very basic tutorial on how to make a minimap. If you don't want to have any of those different effects, if you only want to have this minimap in the corner in the UI, you could make like a custom border for this, some sort of graphic, and that holds this render texture in there, or for your something that you hold in your hand, like a device or a map or something. If you don't want the camera to follow the player, you could have the minimap camera to be in the scene itself and not attached to the player and show like a bigger area. That would work also. If we copy the minimap camera, delete it from here and paste it in our scene here, and then just change the size to show the entire area we have here. 25 is about right. Then it will not follow the player, it will only show the entire like area, and then we can like, for now example, we can see that the blue dot goes under the trees here. So we really need to change the icons to be actually high up above everything. So maybe 15 is enough. Also the same for not that, and here go to 15. And that should then go above the meshes themselves. Yeah, now we go under the trees here and we can still see our icon. You clearly need to make better icons and to do this in whatever way you feel the best. It's kind of easy to do and easy to modify and add those effects to the camera if you need them. You could also use some sort of different camera filters if you need to. Unity Asset Store has a bunch, some free and a bunch of them for sale, but yeah. See what works for you and modify as needed. And that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching.